Hey there, Chemical Operations Manager Casey Henderson here to talk about white grubs. Grubs are one of the issues that we're going to see very commonly here in our Midwest cool season lawns. So we're going to talk about grubs, what they are, the different varieties, the damages that they pose, and what we can do about those. Um, White grubs, obviously by the name, are white. They're C-shaped insects with a chestnut-colored head and three pairs of legs that are clearly visible. The rear end is slightly larger in diameter than the rest of the body and may appear darker due to the soil and organic matters that they ingest. White grubs represent a whole gambit of species of insect in the beetle family. They are part of the family Scarabaeidae. They are common pests of agriculture and horticultural systems, meaning not only do they infest our cool season lawns, but they also affect farmers and farm fields. Often called scarab beetles, the family consists of over 30,000 species worldwide. That's a lot of grubs. Um, these larvae or grubs uh, are common pests of turf grass. The species that we're going to see the most here in the Midwest are going to be Japanese beetles, two different species of masked chafers, European chafers, Asiatic garden beetles, oriental beetles, and green June beetles. Uh, we're also going to see May June beetles and black turfgrass Atianus. The damage that grubs cause is twofold. The first damage that we're going to talk about is called primary damage. This is where the grubs are actually feeding on the roots of the turf grass. While feeding in the soil matrix, they're feeding on organic matter such as the roots. They're also feeding on thatch. Um, and the distribution of these species overlaps significantly, so it's not uncommon for us to find a mixed population of two or more species in a single lawn. Um, as I said, they're feeding damages plant roots, causing the turf to wilt and die. Early indication of this might be patchy areas of wilting, discolored or stressed turf that's not responding to irrigation and fertilization. What happens is the turf eventually collapses, it dies out, and it creates extremely thin patches that are going to range from a few meters to a large contiguous area. This kind of damage again is called primary damage. It's going to result in sod that easily pulls up or becomes dislodged from the soil. It's going to peel back like a rug. Uh, you're going to see underneath of that the white grubs. They're going to be very obvious. One species in particular, the green June bug beetle, produces small mounds in the soil. So you might see like a small hill or a raised area. That's going to mark the entrance to their burrows, and you're going to see that in late summer or spring. Second kind of damage that grubs can cause is called secondary damage. This is where grubs are present. They might not be producing primary damage to the point where you're noticing it. Animals are. These animals are going to dig and tear up the turf trying to get to those grubs. Some of those animals are going to be skunks, raccoons, even turkeys. They will destroy an area of turf very quickly, sometimes overnight, looking for those grubs. They eat those grubs. They're kind of a delicacy for them. This can cause serious concern to homeowners because the the damage that's caused when an animal digs has to be repaired. It's not going to repair itself. Um, some people have tried trapping, and this works as a long-term solution, but it's usually after damage is already done. It's not going to prevent any damage from happening. There is one study that suggests that the use of malorganite, organic fertilizer, can deter foraging animals. Uh, we've seen, based on this study, damage reduced by 75% over a short term, and that's at certain application rates. I've not used this myself, but it does seem to work. Now again, we're going to talk about a couple of different kinds of grubs. The first kind are annual white grubs. They're the most common pest species that we're going to see. They produce one generation every year, hence the name annual. Several annual white grub species, including the Japanese beetle, the European chafer, Asian garden beetle and the oriental beetle are considered exotic. They're invasive species. They come from other parts of the world, uh, but others are native to North America, like the masked chafer and the green Junebug beetle. Now, what happens is these species overwinter in the larval stage. They're going to pupate in the soil during the late spring or early summer, and adults are going to emerge and fly in early to midsummer and begin laying more eggs in the soil. Uh, the adult of some species, especially the Japanese beetle and the Asiatic garden beetle, can be serious pests because they'll also feed on ornamental plants uh, when they're in their adult form. Um, the eggs that are laid are going to hatch by the end of July, producing small larvae. They are going to begin feeding on that root zone. So while the adults are up here tearing up the foliage of the plant, you've got the babies down here eating the roots. Can cause some serious problems. By the time September rolls around, the larvae are going to be large, but damage may not appear then. It may not appear until sometime between August and November. Late instar larvae are going to start to migrate down into the soil as temperatures cool off. They're going to spend the winter there, and then they're going to come back up and repeat the process, feeding on the root zone in the spring. We may also see some turf damage then. It's hard to tell then. More of what you're going to see then is the carpet peel back of turf rather than the dying out and the wilting, just because grass is got plenty of moisture. We're fertilizing. It's got plenty of sunshine, and it's in its spring mode where it's growing very fast. The roots might be mostly repairing itself, or enough to keep the grass lively, but you're still going to see it's not anchored down. If you run over that with the lawnmower, it's liable to peel away. Um, you'll see that damage probably as you're fertilizing the lawn or mowing the lawn. Um, One species, the European chafer, is capable of causing damage at very low densities, lower than other species like the Japanese beetle or the Asiatic beetle. This is because they just feed so more readily. Um, the Junebug beetle, the green Junebug beetle, is going to make these piles of dirt, and you'll see that in this image. These grubs grow to about 40 millimeters, about an inch and a half long. They're white with a brownish black head, brown spiracles along the side of the body. The larvae are going to molt twice before winter, and then the fully grown bug is going to emerge in the spring and summer. You can recognize these grubs if you peel the carpet of grass back and see those. Their color is going to be very glassy yellowish, shading towards green or blue at the head or tail. It's very obvious. The larvae have very stiff ambulatory bristles that help them move around under the soil on its abdomen. These larvae typically travel on their back, so when you peel that grass up, you're going to see their legs are kind of poking up, and that's because they're crawling under the turf and they're feeding on the root system above. They feed largely on humus and mold, but can do considerable damage to a plant's root system. That's because in that root layer, you've got all the funguses and the humus that's there. It just becomes a smorgasbord for green Junebug beetle larvae. Now again, the adult is going to appear about the middle of June. These adults are going to be about a half an inch to an inch in length, about a half inch wide, and the color is going to vary from a dull brown with green stripes to a very uniform and metallic green, hence the name green Junebug. The margins on their hard wing coverings are going to vary from light brown to orange. The adult beetle is going to feed on a variety of fruits, including berries, grapes, nectarines, pears, figs. They're very particular to rotting fruit, which occurs after the initial damage. So they'll bite a piece of fruit, take a bite of it, move on to another one, and they'll come back once that damage has turned into some rot, and they really like to feed on that. Another species that causes some serious problems here, especially in the Midwest. It's an invasive species, the Japanese beetle. It is a species of scarab beetle. While the larvae are feeding on roots of grasses, the adults consume the leaves of a much wider range of hosts. In Japan, they're not very destructive because they have natural predators there, but here in North America, they have no natural predators. And in a gambit of about 300 different species of plants, you're going to see that damage. Very specifically, rose bushes, grapes, crepe myrtles, birch trees and linden trees, uh, strawberries. They're going to eat your garden vegetables, your tomatoes, your peppers. Um, they really like cherries, plums, and pears. A lot of fruit. Um, these Japanese beetles are very prone to attack crab apples. They will strip a crabapple tree just about bare of foliage in a matter of a week or so. And the way they do that is they skeletonize the leaf. They feed in between the vascules and the veins in that soft material, and they'll eat all that material that's inside the vascular area and leave just the skeleton of the leaf there. The plant can't process any kind of food, and it causes some significant damage. The next kind of white grub we're going to talk about are semi-annuals. There is one specific um, semi-annual that we see here in the Midwest, and that's the black Atianus. Um, it's going to produce 2 generations of larvae in a year, and it's going to affect golf courses and fairways more, anywhere that the grass is cut very low. The adults migrate from overwintering areas in the spring, about the time that red buds are in bloom, and they're going to begin laying eggs about the start of May. These eggs are laid in the soil in small clusters that are going to hatch around the end of May. The first generation is going to feed until mid-July, but damage might even be visible in June. These larvae are going to pupate. They're going to produce new adults by early August. These adults from the first batch are going to lay eggs in August and produce a second generation of grubs by the end of August. This happens mostly in the northern parts of the Midwest. Now, damage from this second generation is not uncommon. This is where we really see the damage. The second generation pupate by September, and the emerging adults are known to leave fairways for overwintering sites by October. Again, this species of beetle or grub is not known really for damaging turf lawns, but is capable of causing some serious damage to a closely mowed golf course turf. Now let's talk about some control. Obviously, in our industry, that's what it's really all about. There is 2 different forms of control that we can use. There's biotic control, where we're releasing nematodes at certain times and in certain intervals that are going to feed on those grubs. It's kind of costly, and it's very tricky to get done right. Chemical control is much easier. You have a much wider range of products and a much wider range of time where you can put these products down. One of the best products that we see for preventative control is imidacloprid. This is put down in liquid or dry form. In the spring, as the pupa are growing and starting to feed, they're going to feed on this imidacloprid, and they are going to die off. We can continue that all the way up until weather really warms up in mid-June, July. Once we hit that range, we can switch to another product called Dilox. This is a curative product. This is going to be put down when we see damage occurring. We see that grass peeling back like a carpet, or we see areas dying out. We see areas that are showing heat stress when they're being irrigated and watered properly. And this product, like I said, is a curative. It's going to work almost in the same way as the imidacloprid. The bugs are going to feed on that from inside the plant root that has absorbed that dialox, and they are going to die off. Once grub damage is there, again, the grass is not going to repair itself. In order to truly repair grub damage, we need to do mechanical aeration, core aeration, and overseeding. This grub damage can get very costly. That's why we like to do the preventative rather than the curative. We want to keep those grubs out. We want to keep them off of the customer's lawn. We want to prevent that damage to save the customer money and prevent the cost that is associated with core aeration and overseeding, or maybe even slice seeding to repair a large area of lawn.